we are going over in our reading about things that happen. And each thing has a certain level of importance to, and everybody ranks that level of importance differently in their own lives. There are some things that they take very personally and some things not as personally. That's okay. But sometimes it's good to get things off your chest. Okay? But an admonition to everyone, please, what you have heard today, keep in confidence. Okay? Because you don't know if the other person really wants that news to be sent out. Okay? It's just another way of showing respect for the other members of the group. Okay? So anyway, I know the rabbi asked how I was doing. My cancer is stable. All my other medical conditions are stable. So I'm very happy. But I agree with what has already been said, that it's attitude. I keep busy physically as well as mentally. This is not the only class I lead and things like that. I lead 2 others, and it keeps me very, very busy. And then, of course, like anyone else, you have family issues and like that. Sue is a master at taking care of me. She's a great nurse, but she's doing okay with her medical issues and like that. But thank you for asking.
One other thing, Marty, I would say is, and God bless you and Sue for that. I meant to ask that myself, and I thank the rabbi for bringing that up. One thing I think is also very important for people that are not well, to have good friendships.
Yes.
People they can talk to. This is, I think, is very, very, very good. Very, very good. I'd rather say good than important. I'd rather say it that way. It's such a good thing between people that have nice, good, strong friendships that you could lean on and talk to.
Very good, Michael.
Amen.
Very good. Well, we can, I'm going to pause for a second. Before we get into our readings and like that, I want to just say our prayer in English. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah. Amen.
Amen.
This is one of the things that we're going to be covering today, dovetails into our discussion today. And but before that, Grace wanted to discuss something about animals. This is going to come up in, I don't know if we'll get to all of it today, but yes, we're going to get to some of this today as well. Yes, Grace.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Ruth Ann, for providing me with my passcode. I'm away from home, and I've been staying with a friend, and we have a clan get-together for a scrimmage football game for 6-year-olds a little bit later this afternoon. And in this process, I've been caretaking a Yorkie along with Sebastian, and I decided my first morning here, we were going to the park. So we went to this dog park. Everything was successful with the exception of Sebastian immediately got the first sticker, and he came up to me limping and gimping. I was able to get that one out of his paw. And the little girl, who's like he's 85 pounds bigger than this dog, right? So she's got muddy paws with stickers coming all out and over, and she was biting and, trying to get them off of her. I'm caring for this animal voluntarily. I decided to do it. It was okay with the owner. What do? I drive 125 miles round trip to get her to my dog's groomer and have her taken care of.
Yeah.
Because, God forbid I would, be irresponsible to another being, whether it's human or animal, that's me to the great, that's me. I'm an overdoer. Notoriously, I overthink, I overdo, and sometimes I give myself a break, but not very often.
Okay.
But everything worked out nicely, and I had some other chores I needed to do in my home. So I basically went home and came back, and it all turned out nicely. She got a groom, she got a nail trim, Sebastian got a nail trim, and I got, some bills paid and some things that I needed to do on top of it. So it was all good. It just scared the crap out of me. I was like,
Yeah.
oh no.
You probably made a friend for life, taking the stickers out of the paw.
Well, we've known each other for 35 years, so I think
Okay.
we're friends a
Well,
long time.
that's been written about. It's an old Greek story, Androcles and the lion. Okay.
What color nail polish did you put on them? Put on them. Not peach.
No such luck. No. Some people do that. I don't.
No, that's why.
Okay, well,
What are we up to? What I missed last week, so I don't know where we're at.
we are starting Exodus 22, verse 19.
Oh, we didn't get far at all, did you?
No, but it's good because of the discussions. And but I want to mention that this was a good discussion, and it sort of also brings us all closer together. So, and that means more responsible to each other. So if somebody would like to read verse 19.
I can do that.
Please.
Whoever sacrifices to a god other than the Lord alone shall be proscribed. You shall not run.
Well, wait a minute,
Yeah,
just
this
verse
is not
19. Let's take one at a time because
Okay.
it's what is going on here? What do you take away
Shall-
from this?
It depends on how you define proscribed. It says, see Leviticus 27:29. Oh, I don't feel like. Oh. Well, wait a minute.
Well, if you had to take the word in
Oh,
context,
executed. Okay, executed. This law applies only to Israelites. Only they are subject to the first commandment and punished for violating it. That's what my,
so what does this one verse relate to? Yes, Don.
Sacrifices.
Okay, just sacrifices.
no, it's pagan.
Well,
It's pagan. But which commandment that we read several weeks ago?
The first commandment. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Is part of the first.
nor bow down to them, nor worship
That's
them.
right.
Yeah.
And
Et cetera,
you're
et
not,
cetera.
you're not
But-
going to worship. Right. Yes, Rabbi.
Okay, now, so Don's right. The Hebrew word here is sacrifice.
Right.
It's
Yes.
not worship. It's not
Sacrifice.
what and again in the text of the Ten Commandments, specifically they're talking about. Ricky, what did you say? What was the translation of what's the punishment that you had there?
My footnote says proscribed, executed. This law applies.
Okay, execution is
applies
not
only to Israelites.
execution is not necessarily, that's one interpretation.
Okay.
But you might know the term cherem. Okay. Cherem is more properly excommunication.
Oh,
Okay. So in other words, anyone who offers sacrifices to another god or gods should be not executed but excommunicated. It by definition is sent out of the community. That act automatically means that the individual has chosen to exclude himself or herself from the community. Um, Two further comments. One, later on, this phrase is used specifically as an attack against not just reform or conservative or humanistic or reconstructionist Judaism in our day or our generations, but goes all the way back into the Middle Ages of anyone who seemed to be practicing a form of Judaism that was outside the mainstream. A group of 3 rabbis could send anyone into cherem. Spinoza is sent into cherem because of his philosophical teachings in that sense. So that's the important thing to connect with here, is that term of cherem, but it's not. Certainly in Torah times it may have meant a little something else, but certainly by rabbinic times and on through. I have to tell you, I'm in cherem because more than 3 Orthodox rabbis have said that the teachings of Reform Judaism or conservative Judaism or Reconstructionist, whatever, are antithetical to mainstream Judaism. Therefore, we're excommunicated. Sorry, folks.
Oh, but I've heard that. Yes, Ricky.
okay. I have the Stone edition, which has different translation of 19 and a lot of commentary of different people.
Please.
The translation: one who brings offerings to the gods shall be destroyed, only to Hashem alone. And then the notes. According to Rambam, Elohim in this verse refers to angels, for it is a capital offense to worship any force or combination of forces, even the angels of Hashem. Sforno adds that it is forbidden even if one worships Hashem as well as idols, shall be destroyed. This cherem, I guess it is, CHEREM.
Mhm.
This unusual term for the death penalty indicates that the transgressor is so beyond the pale that he is not worthy of existence. By assigning the status of deity where it does not belong, the worshiper has forfeited his own right to exist. That's Rambam. There's a
Okay.
lot of commentary in this one.
That's Rambam.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I mean, I got Sforno, I got Rashi, I got Rambam.
Right. Well, that's the stone again from the Orthodox
Exactly.
point of view. Right. We have no written evidence that anyone was ever publicly executed based on that. Okay, they always found there was some kind of a loophole here and there. The other thing that I wanted to say, Marty, if you don't mind,
Please.
is I mentioned, I think it was last week, that there are a few exceptions to when following religious law does take precedence to following civil law, and this is one of them. Idol worship, sacrifices or whatever to other gods. If the state says you must bow down to a crucifix or whatever, you are entitled to break civil law because that would be going against Jewish law.
Right.
It's one of the 4 or 5 exceptions.
Thank you. Very important. Yes, Don.
Yeah, I'm kind of fixated on this thread of sacrifice. Over the last year, I've been just researching this. And so the thread goes back, in my view, to Cain, whose animal sacrifice was accepted by God in favor of Abel's agricultural offering. And then through Abraham, with the aborted sacrifice at the Akedah, and now we're into this commandment about sacrifices, and then onward from here, the destruction of the two temples was paralyzing because that's where the sacrifices were conducted, and without the temple, there was no central place where everybody could gather. Excuse me for blabbering on, but as I said, I'm fixated on this. And then after the destruction of the second temple is the rise of Christianity, where Jesus, who was a Jew, said, well, I'm the last sacrifice. You know, the temple's gone, but then it's 70 AD. And so that ostensibly was the termination of the need for sacrifice. Now, of course, Judaism doesn't accept that, or doesn't accept that the whole story of the sacrifice. But anyway, I see that though as an extension of thousands of years of sacrifice we're discussing. And so I would like to turn this over to Rabbi Norm, who thankfully is raising his hand already.
Yes, I know, because you touched on a few subjects there that I think need further explanation. Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah, even before God, whether we say Adonai, Hashem, whatever, but the God whom Jews worship, even before that God says, don't worship any other gods or sacrifice to them or bow down to them or whatever, God says, I'm a jealous God. Okay? I am jealous. I don't want you worshiping anybody else. Yeah, there's sacrifice to me. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But don't sacrifice as part of your worship or acknowledge any other deities. So that becomes the underlying issue for it. Our God recognizes that there are other gods, not to deny them, but to recognize that if you worship them, there's a difference between recognizing and worshiping, or between knowing about them and believing in them. If you worship them, then you're going to suffer whatever the punishment of the time might be. But I'm jealous. I'm impassioned about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, Michael.
I'm going to look at this from another, just a simple point here, if I may, and just read this. Whoever sacrifices to a god, I think it says a lot right there, and it goes on, other than the Lord, God. It's not. There are no lords in the plural. It's one Lord, and that's the God. And gods, as the rabbi said, could be multiple gods. So I'm just taking a situation and kind of defining the word God from Lord in a way.
Okay.
Well, it's God with a little g here, and Lord, isn't that usually where the tetragrammaton would be?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's just the substitution for the Yud Het Vav He. So, but it's a little g God, not a capital G God.
Right. So this is an extension of an earlier rule. It's an amendment to the original mitzvah.
Well, pardon me. It's also when the inference is there in, again, what we call the Ten Commandments. That's how God will. I will remember the sins of the fathers, third, fourth generations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's God's punishment. That's God's response. Okay. This is if someone is seen caught worshiping to other gods, small g, the society has the right to punish
Right.
them, to excommunicate them, to send, by definition of their action, they have removed themselves from the community. Whether, again, it was a time of execution or whether it was a time of just, putting up a sign on the wall, your rabbi is in cherem. Don't listen to him.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yes, Don?
Uh, Back to the rabbi again, if I may. So sacrifice, uh, the definition of sacrifice, I'm imagining somebody who's putting a lamb on the altar, but it isn't the best lamb. It's got a little blemish in it, and only the shepherd knows that. But he has another lamb which is blemish free. So first of all, is that still a sacrifice within the terms of the commandment, or is it a holding back sacrifice, which is as good as no sacrifice, or failing to sacrifice?
I think I don't want to speak necessarily in the absolute, okay? But the term here is the generic term for sacrifice, or okay. Then there are further categories. There's a burnt offering, there's a peace offering, there's a meal offering, and there's a sin offering, and each of those has further criteria, including whether it's free from blemish, or whether there's no comment about blemish, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My guess is that anyone who brings an animal for sacrifice, they give that person the benefit of the doubt of the intention to provide a worthy sacrifice. The priest's role was to inspect. And the priest's role would then be to determine, it seems to me like this person could have brought a better offering rather than one that does have this spot on it, or a blemish. But my understanding, and I'm not an expert on it by any means, it's a part of the Talmud that I haven't spent a lot of time with. But my guess is that the priest is the one who would have to determine ultimately whether that sacrifice was acceptable or not.
Okay.
But you would have to be careful there. You can think of a situation where the animal that has been brought, that's the one in best shape. And
Right,
still
sure.
has a
Yeah, like I
blemish.
said, and the priest
That's
would have
right.
to determine not only the appropriateness of the animal, but also the motivation and intention of the
That's right.
donor.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, God is expecting the best from his people.
The choice,
But,
right?
yes,
The choicest.
and that is when responsibility comes into play. Your own personal responsibility. Are you doing what has been requested of you? Okay, and somebody with a high level of responsibility will have inspected the animal before he even gives it to the priest.
Right, right. And again,
Okay.
it almost seems like it's a Hillel and Shammai kind of question. Okay.
Yeah.
And that Hillel would say, I'm not quoting, I'm just kind of that Hillel would say the intention of the giver, of the donor, is more important than the actual quality of the gift.
Mhm.
And Shammai would say, no, we have to be much more exact. It says that the sacrifice has to be of such and such a quality, and if you don't have that quality, don't offer the sacrifice.
Is it a command? Is it a request or a command?
To offer the sacrifice, It's one of the 613 commandments.
Right, so it's more than a request.
Absolutely. It's
Yes.
it's a commandment in the sense of an obligation and an expectation.
And really what I was getting after is if you accept the responsibility, then and you go through the actions and everything, let's say it goes through, but you know that you gave the animal or the sacrifice, whatever it's going to be, for what purpose. If you already knew that there was something not right, but you did it anyway, you would be suffering the inner guilt. Okay, I'm expanding on what I said before. You would have the feeling of guilt that you would be carrying with you. Okay, this
What
is
if
sort
it-
of like a
what-
teaching from the Jewish mother standpoint.
Suzanne's cat is making sure we're not talking about feline sacrifices, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Just checking
Right.
in to make sure.
Yes.
Oh, golly. Yeah, okay, Ricky, then Don. Ricky, I didn't hear what you had to say.
I was
Oh,
just
okay.
an aside.
Okay. Yes, Don.
Oh, yeah, I'm just thinking of Bernie Madoff
Ah.
donating millions of dollars to Israel and then getting the money by ripping off fellow Jews. I have no idea what guilt or not or non-guilt he may have been carrying.
Exactly.
You can extrapolate the small sacrifice of a lamb on the altar to that scale, you know.
Okay.
Many,
I
many
remember what I was
Jewish,
going to say.
the many Jewish organizations and institutions have returned money that came, whether or not that money went back to the victims, that I don't know how that would have been disseminated, but they've chosen. That's a frequent question,
Yeah.
whether it's an individual synagogue or whether it's a yeshiva or whether it's a hospital or the state of Israel. And he said, what do we do if we find out that the donor that the dollars or whatever it was were obtained through illegal means?
This also holds true in the world of donations, not just to charity, but political donations. And there are certain standards. What standards do you there are so many different levels of standards depending on whether it's thought of in business or law, religious, etc. You can see where issues can arise. And but we're going to be covering some of that, by the way, very shortly. Yes, Ricky.
I remembered what I was going to say before. Going back to the quality of the sacrifice. What if it's flawed, but it is the best that the guy has?
Right. That's the question of it. What's the intention?
That's right. Yeah. And so this also is there, although there are animal sacrifices later on, if you are poorer, there's a different standard of what you will sacrifice. We will come across that probably maybe by the end of the year, but maybe next year. But anyway, but at the same time, there's also a phrase, and I'm not sure where it's exactly located, but I think we will come to it, that if somebody is poor and cannot make the sacrifice, it behooves those who have to give for the purpose of that. on behalf to the individual.
Okay.
That's right. So it's there's a lot that goes into this, and that's one of these are the things that we take into consideration when we're donating money. We will cover that later too in more depth, but there's a lot that goes into this. Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah, the same kind of a question, and the emeritus of the temple, he has passed away, and I, back up in Michigan, did a lot of research into this. When the temple was doing a capital campaign or something like that, and they said the minimum amount to have your name listed, you know, on a board of whatever of contributors was whatever it was, $1,000, $500, I don't remember. And so the question came up: what if there's someone who wanted to participate in the campaign but couldn't give any more than $100? And is it Jewishly appropriate and fair to not put their name, not their name up? And
question.
the capital campaign committee wanted to go one way, and the two rabbis said, everyone who participates on whatever level has to be recognized as participating to the extent that he or she or they can.
Yeah.
We won the battle.
Yeah, that also opens up a discussion about saying thank you. How do you say thank you?
Yeah, sure.
You know,
Sure.
do you do it only for people of wealth, or do you only?
That's a whole. That's a totally
it's the
different
same argument. It's the same
It's
argument.
a totally different thing.
That's right.
And I don't think it's in the Torah, but certainly in the Mishnah. If you don't have the equivalent amount of, if you don't have the right kind of animal
Mhm.
for this sacrifice, okay. And Marty, you said maybe other people can chip in to provide, okay. The other was you can give what you can and pay the priest who could put that kind of money together in a little kitty, so to speak, and buy an animal for sacrifice on behalf of the 3 or 4 or 30, whatever it was, people who couldn't afford it on their own. That's definitely in the Mishnah.
Now, yes, okay, I'm going to ask another question, but Ricky, you first.
A million years ago, a church that I was a friend of, they had a campaign, and what they did to sort of hedge this was they asked people to donate like 1% of their annual income, a percent. So 1% of somebody who made $50,000 versus 1% of somebody who made $250,000, because the amount of from the giver was equivalent, and that they did it that way.
But what about the person who still doesn't feel that he or she can pay 1%?
Well, I don't remember what they did. They
Right.
picked whatever.
I was a treasurer once.
Yeah.
And what I put in place at another temple was that if you can't afford the dues,
Oh, you'll always get it by.
here's a list of
Uh-huh.
things that the temple has to pay for. Can you volunteer to help take care of one of those? Sometimes it was cooking. Sometimes that's right. It's some little thing. It doesn't have to add up to the amount, but it allowed them to save face.
Exactly.
And that dovetails into my question.
Mhm.
Torah does not say these people are exonerated from not giving. They still have to give. Why? Even the poor people have to give something. Why?
Grace
Yes,
has
Grace.
Yeah, isn't that in order for the individual to feel a part of the community?
You got it. So you got it. It's very important. It also allows another way of putting it for the individual is it saves face. You don't say anything about it. But the point is that when somebody participates and is part of a group, they will have a totally different attitude towards the group than if they given everything, having all the benefits and not participating. They will feel good about themselves, what they've been able to do for the group. So that's what we're going to be reading, is the extension of all of these discussions as we see the different levels of sacrifice and everything. And but you have to think about what people should be doing and what they can
What do
do.
you have there, Roybal?
It's not an easy discussion.
Yes. What do you
Oh.
have in your hand, hon?
Mhm.
So anyway, I'll finish there. Any other comments about this? I know yes, Michael.
Well, I'm thinking that they could have actually a reverse reaction in this respect, that if someone cannot give, when they're up against people who are given thousands, and you don't have that, one person may not have that and has to do it somewhere else, a sense of embarrassment can encompass that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a possibility there. So I'd like to say, it's not an easy discussion because there's a lot of components and factors involved.
That's right. And this one little line has we've expanded it. We're going to see that expansion as we go through, but it's really dovetails into a whole bunch of other commandments. As we're seeing here, there's going to be a thread, but I think it's very important to understand that we always use the phrase saving face, but the actual word is saving the person from that sense of embarrassment. And that is addressed as the rabbi in a lot of writings and teachings. Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah, it occurred to me while I was listening to all this that I neglected to say back in the first definitions of cherem, excommunication or whatever, and removal from the community. It's not only the individual; it's his or her property, possessions, maybe even their family. And again, without getting into a whole political discussion, in Israel, sometimes they use this kind of a quotation as a justification for the way that some people, non-Jews especially, but for some people, people who've created terrorist acts or whatever, that their house has to be torn down, blown up, whatever. Family has to be, moved away, et cetera, et cetera. So
that will eventually come up in our reading.
it's more
in
than
Torah.
just the individual.
Yes,
It's also everything related to the individual.
that's right. So we're going to discuss this again and again. So this very thing. Just make sure when you have bricks outside that they don't pick up the white scale from the calcium that leaches from the soil. When you wet the bricks, many times they'll get a white scaly component to them. So just be careful of that. That's going to come up in probably a year from now at this point. Anyway, whoever would like to read, Ricky, since you had the book there, just verse 20.
Just 20. You shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt.
Okay. First, what is a stranger here?
Anybody who's not a Jew. Isn't it?
not a part of the community.
Right.
Okay. But
Well,
it's not
well,
so. It is somebody who is what?
A ger, but not Jewish. I mean, if you're Jewish but from another town, you're not necessarily a stranger, are you?
It's somebody who's living amongst you,
mhm.
who is no longer a ger. He
Wait, say that
doesn't own
again.
the property outside of the community.
Huh?
Is
There
it a
are different
term?
levels. There are different levels of ger.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a total stranger, non-member of the community, of the Israelite community. We're talking in the Torah right now. Okay.
Okay.
So there's someone who's a total stranger. Then there's someone who is a resident alien, someone who is living among you and following your laws, if you will, and your societal norms.
Mhm.
And then there's a ger tzedek, is one who has officially adopted and said, like Naomi,
Comfort, yeah,
Ruth
okay.
and Naomi, your people shall be my people, your God shall be my God. Okay, so there's three levels, but this is the overriding term,
Right.
and anyone who is
Oh,
Ricky's a non-Israelite in
right, I'm
any
gonna
shape,
go public.
and form.
But isn't it in the that is residing in the community? That is not that it doesn't necessarily pertain to someone from another nation.
No, it could. It could. It
It
be
could?
somebody who you encounter along the way is a stranger.
Okay,
Okay.
I was wrong in my thinking.
That's the way I
Okay.
believe it is. Right.
Okay. So, but why is this put up against sacrifices and lying with beasts, sorceresses, seducing a virgin, borrowing animal and laws of for the care of animals? Why is this all together? Why is this part of it? It's all lumped together. It's one right after the other. Some people have said, oh, it's disjointed. It doesn't make sense. But there has to be a reason why it's all together. We addressed part of it a while ago.
Would it be anybody other than us, the we and them issue? So the animals, all the other things are them, and we're the us. So you could put everything else into the them bucket.
Okay,
I don't know.
but is it something? Is there something in here that that the stranger may have another belief system? Okay.
Well, he's still a them.
Yes.
But of course, here we know that Jews welcome the stranger, as is on our memorial board.
Okay.
Israel, who welcomes the stranger.
Sure. But what else?
Marty,
Lisa.
Grace has her hand up.
Oh, Grace, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, no worries, no worries. You mentioned that we discussed some time ago. Isn't it like the golden rule? Do not do to oneself that you would not do unto others. And it's encompassing more than just, one another as human, but also how we care for the animals and treat, all of it. That's just my guess. I'm reaching for a straw there.
Is there a hidden message in all of this that
Always.
based on what you just said, is there a hidden message?
Oh, I'll read you what Stone says here. Stranger, The commentators explain the verse as referring to a convert to Judaism, but the sense of the verse applies also to any stranger, even a fellow Jew who is a newcomer to the neighborhood or school, for he too feels ill at ease in unfamiliar surroundings. The native Jew who taunts a convert over his foreign origin invites the retort, "You too were strangers in the land of Egypt." That's Rashi.
Mhm.
So
So why all of this? Yeah, why all of this and keeps coming back? What is it, 33 times or so?
36.
36 times that this is brought to mind. Why?
Deeper sense of the verse. Jews might be tempted to look down on converts because they lack the sanctity of lineage from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But in response to this, the Torah cautions us that we had once been mixed in the spiritual muck of Egyptian contamination and were no better than the convert had been before his conversion.
Okay. Okay.
I like that thought.
Rabbi?
Okay, except again, I think Ricky's commentary there is adding the layer of Ger
Yes.
refusing to someone who converts and joins. I'm thinking more about this, literally the way we use the phrase stranger, someone who has not historically previously been part of the community. We operate on ignorance of the law is no excuse. Okay. But I think maybe this is the opposite, is make sure that you don't punishment, pressure, try to incriminate whatever a stranger who may still be ignorant of your laws. Okay. They're new. Welcome them, support them, give them the benefit of the doubt, teach them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, as opposed, and there's two different verbs here. There's what's the first one translated as? You shall not wrong a stranger is my translation here, or pressure them. So
Come on to oppress.
right. I mean, one is don't do wrong by them, and the other can be both pressure in the sense of oppression, but it also could be pressure them, quote unquote, to convert, to accept everything with the way that we wanted, that we insist is the correct way of doing it. So I think it certainly opens up a lot of interpretations to what the phrase might mean, or might have meant then, and what it means to us now.
Okay. There's one other thing that I'm going to save for much later, so we can move on. There's one other discussion that we can have with this, but it may be better to hold it until a little later.
Okay.
If somebody would read verse 21, just 21.
You shall not ill-treat any widow or orphan. But I think this whole paragraph goes together.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
If you do mistreat them, I will heed their outcry as soon as they cry out to me. And my anger shall blaze forth, and I will put you to the sword, and your own wives shall become widows, and your children orphans. Yeah, that all has to go together.
Yes, that's a good one.
I will heed their outcry as soon as they cry out to me. So the widow or the orphan has to cry out to God before God's anger will put the offender to the sword.
Okay.
I mean, that's how I'm reading that. Let's see what commentary. Well, the widows and orphans don't have a man protecting them. So
that's a very practical way of looking at it. Yes.
Yeah, basically, they don't have the husband, they don't have the father. Let's see what sensitivity to the helpless and abandoned. To take it, taking advantage of the weak and helpless. There's also a tendency on the part of the disadvantaged people to be more sensitive than others to perceived insults. Although it is forbidden to abuse anyone, the Torah frames this prohibition specifically with reference to converts, widows, and orphans because they are the most vulnerable to such mistreatment.
Okay. What's the practical? Yes, Rabbi, I think you
No, I was
wanted
just
to
gonna,
say
I was just gonna
something.
say why, about calling out to God, and it was mentioned they don't have a master, a husband,
Right,
a father to cry out to. So who else can they cry out to?
right. It's a good point.
So it's not that it's not that it's, well, they've tried everything else and it's the last resort. They don't have the everything else to as an avenue for help.
Yes.
But what about the widow or the orphan who doesn't cry out at all? Are they to be abandoned to the abuse of the torturer or whatever? Because they didn't cry out? They might be, like,
Actually,
take the battered wife. You take the battered wife who never leaves because that's it, that's her, she accepts that as her lot in life, whatever,
okay. No, your point is excellent. And actually,
Mm.
it's what they call a chidush. It's a new interpretation that caused a reworking of the law. Okay,
Mm.
all right. That because originally, for example, a victim. I don't want to change the topic too much, but a woman who's a victim of rape. Okay,
Mhm.
she was the one who was punished if no one heard her call out.
Right,
Okay, and
right.
that's the way that initially the Torah law was understood. Okay, but enough people cried out about that and said, "Wait a minute,
Exactly.
that's not fair." So they had to reinterpret, that more in lights of if she was prohibited from crying out. Okay, or she may have cried out, but no one heard her. Okay, things like that, so that that extra layer of protection and support came to her as a victim.
But that
Okay,
doesn't
so
take you
they
far.
changed it. The Torah seemed to leave it one way, but they later on changed it, recognizing that that wasn't officially fair. So it would be the same kind of principle here.
But
Okay,
that didn't go far enough because she didn't cry out, truly did not cry out. But the question is, why did she not cry out?
right? She may have been
Because she was
prohibited from crying
traumatized,
out.
or because she had been beaten so many times.
Exactly.
that-
No, exactly. I'm agreeing.
Oh,
I'm agreeing.
yeah,
But
but
they
they
just had
didn't.
they had to, without going into all the details of it, they had to make sure that she wasn't trying to exploit the situation and accuse him of something in order for him, because that act of intercourse can qualify as a way towards marriage.
Marriage.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it gets all complicated like that. But they recognized that, exactly as you're questioning it, they recognized that there was a piece to the way this was initially understood that wasn't fair to the widow or the orphan or the stranger, saying that they only had to cry out to God. Wait a minute, that's
Yeah, but see, you took it that maybe she cried out, but nobody heard her. I mean, that's not far enough. I mean, I can understand that,
I'm not
but
talking.
maybe she just.
I'm not talking about 21st century. I'm talking about thousands of years ago. They recognized that there was an inequity there, and they started to change. I'm only talking about what the first development in it, not the way it's understood today.
Okay.
Very good. Okay, Don.
Yeah, in the verse about you were strangers in the land of Egypt, when were the Hebrews not strangers in the land? I mean, they were in Egypt for over 200 years since Joseph, and then before that, scattered across defined wilderness. So at what point were the Hebrews not strangers in the land? I'm wondering.
That's a good point.
I would
When they
assume that
moved past Ur,
by usage of the term, they meant non-Egyptians. Okay, they did not have a classification. They were slaves. They were Gerim. I don't know what the Egyptian term is. We would need Lynn Liebling to tell us that. But that's the way I would understand it.
But even before then, there was no particular land that I can recall that they would consider home.
No, but they were
wanderers.
they were sojourners.
They were
Yeah.
wanderers, yeah.
Again, they were always going to be visiting in Egypt,
Yeah.
temporarily
Right.
before they came to the promised land.
Right.
Another way of looking at this, let's assume that just for a brief moment, that this story begins with Exodus 1:1 rather than Genesis 1:1.
Mhm.
And all the the preceding familial wanderings. Okay, and you don't take that into consideration, you have a totally different story. So you need that. So that's another reason why, if you were the editor to this book, you would say, go back and give me some more background on the characters. Okay, because you've picked it up at the story at a part that's important, yes, but you haven't explained the way people were behaving, why they were doing that. You must have that extra book, the book of Exodus. And
Yeah,
when
the
you
book of
do that,
Genesis.
then you start realizing the entire our entire story is a book of wandering.
Thank you, Chaim Potok.
Yep.
Yeah. We
So
need a prequel.
yeah,
We need a prequel.
and this dovetails into another discussion. Are we a nation? Judaism?
Oh, God.
These discussions go on. I'm giving that as food for fodder to the rabbi, because it would be a good. These would be interesting discussions. Because we have been called these things at different times, and we've called ourselves different things at different times. And
well, you started by delineating right there. Is
yeah, that's right.
How we refer to ourselves.
How we
and
refer
others
to
refer
ourselves. That's right. And how others perceive us. So it's an interest. It would be an interesting discussion. I could see an ecumenical discussion of this.
Sure.
So enough about that.
No, Don's got it.
Donald has his hand
Oh,
up.
okay, Don. Yes.
He's not done.
Well, just following up, I don't know. This book by Chaim Potok,
Yeah.
which very few people are familiar with. It's a children's story about glider pilots. And I found it in a bookstore and bought the entire stuff.
Great.
And we're giving away a lot of them now, but anyway, I thought I'd mention that.
So
Well, Chaim Potok has a history of the Jews, or had. He's now no
Yes.
longer alive.
Right,
Had a history of the Jews called Wanderings,
right.
which is a book that I recommended to a lot of people who were studying with me for conversion. So,
wasn't there a rock group also with that name at some time?
Wanderers.
Yeah.
One
Well,
wanderer.
Dion DiMucci talked about singing about
That's a song, but I think there was a group too. Anyway, enough of that. Any other comments about this?
Are we going on to verse 23 yet or not?
It's part of what we read.
We did read 23?
My
Yes, we
anger shall
did.
blaze forth, and I will put you to the sword, and your own wives shall become widows, and your children orphans. So
Okay,
there's that anger.
again, that doesn't mean capital punishment. That put you to the sword is a euphemism in the Torah that means when you go into battle, and you will ultimately be defeated, so that all of your men as the soldiers will be slaughtered, and then then your wives will be widows, your children will be all orphans. But I'm sorry that Michael is not here right now, because the verb here that God says, the translation is like, I'll put you to the sword, but the translation, because I know that Michael always looks for the distinctions. This is that I will kill you, not murder, but this is kill. It's an interesting, choice of the word, rather than when you go into battle, you will be defeated, kind of thing. So, but it's all euphemistic in the way that the Torah phrases it.
There's another extension of this that I think merits a little discussion, and that is, at our age, very few of us have living parents. In a sense, we are orphans.
Exactly.
So this also is another way of looking at things. We always think of the term orphan as occurring, oh, it's a child that's lost its parents or things like that. But everyone sooner or later becomes a widow or a widower and an orphan. So we could pick up the argument and say, you got to treat everybody okay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a missing category here.
Please.
If your spouse dies, you're a widow or widower. If your parents die, you're an orphan. But if your children die, there's no word for it that I know of.
That's right.
That not in any civilized culture, no culture, because the research has been done. No linguistic term exists in it. The thought of it is, speaking from experience, the thought of it is so painful.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my best friends just went through it 2 weeks ago. The thought of losing a child is so painful that there's no term for it, because it wouldn't adequately express it.
Yeah.
I knew it was true in English, but I didn't know that it was as almost a universal fact.
Just about totally universal.
Which is an interesting subject. Here's another discussion for the rabbi to organize. No, really, but sooner or later, everyone becomes a widow, a widower, or orphan,
or a stranger.
I was told you're never fully adult until your parents die, because you're as long as there's a parent around, you're still a baby to them. So you're fully adult only when you become an orphan.
Well, I understand. Be well, Grace.
Thank you.
Enjoy the game.
Thank you.
But I think this is why these are left like this, for us to think of the other variations on the theme. Some will be expressed at that time, that this is written and like that, and others will not find its way into the writing. But I think that's because we are expected to look at this in greater depth. As we've been doing, we've only covered 4 or 5 verses, And we've really looked at these from different perspectives. So if everybody winds up in the same situation, it's another thing that we have to respect this situation, because we ourselves sooner or later will be in the same circumstance. And we would, and as was said, as Grace said earlier, with the golden rule, just like you would like to be treated, treat others, and the same way. And I think this is what it comes down to here as well. And the animals are included. And by the way, birds are classified as animals.
Let me go check on my pigeon.
Right. Okay. But also it's a responsibility. I was going to save this for later, but it's just bursting within me. I have to say it. We are being made stewards of ourselves and stewards of everything else. Nothing is left undone. God has created all of this. And maybe that's why everything is included. Because we're the caretakers. And we're going to learn that about the land and everything. We're the caretakers. We're just
Stewards.
borrowing. It's on loan to us. And so it may, by the way, this is not just unique in our religion. It's unique to Native American religion as well. So it's something that maybe that's the deeper aspect to this, that we should be looking at this in terms of being, and it's been said before, we're God's helper. We're continuing the process of creation. I forget who said that originally, but
It's been said. It's been said many ways.
Yeah. So that's really what I think we're getting after here. And that's why it looks like it's uncoordinated thoughts, but they really are all together if we look at it that way. Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Marty. I'm not aware, this may sound a little chauvinistic or whatever, but that's okay. I'm not aware of any of the other sacred literature of Western religions. I don't think about the Eastern religions necessarily, or Native American or whatever, but any of the other Western religions in their sacred literature that goes into such detail, or what we would call case studies.
That's right.
Okay. That are all laid out for us to be what the prophets will call or lagoyim, light to the nations. Okay, it's not just generically in the monotheistic statement of there is only one God. It's also in all of these things that have to do with how we live, how we are stewards, how we relate to each other, how we relate to the land, the animals, all of God creatures, and da 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 da. So, and I've done a little bit of studying of the patristic fathers in Catholicism and things. I'm not aware of anything that goes into such detail.
Right.
There's agreement on a lot of the values, absolutely, and a lot of the belief statements, absolutely. There's agreement, but not the holy literature for the population. Maybe for the scholars, yes, but not for the population. After all, everyone is supposed to have their own copy of the Torah in their own home. So, I'm just throwing that out as a supplement to what you were saying.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that extension. I appreciate that. Yes, Don.
Just following on that thought, Rabbi, I'm thinking in Christianity, of course, there are the parables which relate very closely to everyday life, but also in the Catholic Church, there are hundreds of saints, which is sort of almost a polytheistic religion once you get down to the level of the saints, because there's a saint for everything, and down to the level of detail we're finding, throughout the Torah and the Talmud. I mean, there's local saints through Ireland, through every country, a saint for everything you could think of, So I'm not sure if we have a monopoly on the detail level.
Well, maybe these people are being honored because they dedicated their lives to one or more teachings of Scripture
I knew I'd get
and
Susan.
lived it. And lived it. I don't.
I try
Go
not,
ahead, Suzanne.
I try not to comment, but
No, you've got to. You've got
yeah,
to. don't
I do
understand
have
why.
to. I agree with Rabbi that in Christianity, well, I should say the New Testament, let's put it that way. We don't have these kind of laws aren't provided in detail, and there were some laws, if you will, or commandments given, but they were really pretty basic. And that was the first commandment, to love God, with all your heart, mind, soul, so forth. And then the second one was by Yeshua, who said that we were to love everyone as he has loved us. Initially, he said as just to love your neighbors, but then later on he modified it. Well, and the reason for not having all this kind of detail was the idea that Yeshua died for all of our sins, that he was the perfect man and he fulfilled the law perfectly. So that kind of, I don't want to say threw these laws out the window, but it kind of, it like nullified them or voided them. I mean, they were just no longer applicable.
Mhm.
So that's why Christians, don't have this kind of level of detail. And then I won't get started on my rant against the Catholic Church, but I will say that that saints were created not because of any particular teaching, and I can assure you there is nothing in the New Testament that about making people saints. That was
Right.
purely a Catholic administrative decision, and it has nothing to do with Yeshua or God's message. And I think Don hit it on the head when he called it polytheism. I mean, teaching people to pray to saints just drives me up the wall. So that's my little bit of a rant against the
Okay.
church.
Thank you. Anyway, any other comments about this? I'm sorry I brought us out on a tangent, but it was, I just wanted to discuss it anyway. Any other comments about the orphan and widows? Okay, then let's move on. We have a little time left. If someone would read verses 24 through 26. Ricky, would you like to
No,
do it, please?
Yeah, I'll continue. If you lend money to my people, to the poor among you, do not act toward them as a creditor. Exact no interest from them. If you take your neighbor's garment in the pledge, you must return it to him before the sun sets. It is his only clothing, the sole covering of his skin. In what else shall he sleep? Therefore, if he cries out to me, I will pay heed, for I am compassionate. And here's where he has to cry out to God again, like the woman.
Okay.
Let
So
the-
what,
Let somebody else talk about the creditor
okay,
and no interest, usury.
so would anybody have any opinion about this? Yes, Don.
I'll be looking for everybody else's opinion
Yeah.
because the interest is, the world economy is based on the interest. And
Exactly.
I know there's a distinction between usury and interest. What is fair, but it's the distinction is not on the commandment. So I'd be looking to hear. I don't have any opinion myself, but it's so fundamental that I'd be interested in anybody else's opinion.
Okay.
That's why I didn't comment, because I'm waiting for somebody to say
Oh,
something.
come on now, guys.
Well,
We
okay,
can't all
I'll-
be in that situation. Okay, Rabbi, go ahead.
I'll start
Why
with
would
a
I lend
couple,
money
okay?
to somebody
Um,
if I'm not going to expect to gain something from the loan, unless I'm doing it as a charity? I mean,
all right. Okay,
Go
couple
Okay.
of, first of all, this is not just applying to your it doesn't say if you're lending money to among your people, meaning your family, your neighbors, your
mine
community,
with a capital.
or the Hebrews. This is
Right.
all of my people, God's people, meaning that's anyone.
Anyone?
Okay, anyone. All right. Um, and they understand it, and certainly it's codified by the time of the Talmud, because the realization was that if you're not charging any interest, no one's gonna
Right.
no one's gonna lend money, and except as a gift or an offer of charity, here and there. So they qualified it as in the Talmud to say except in a business sense. So if it's a business, if there's a contract involved, and both sides have to agree on the amount of interest, you can charge interest. But this is the basis of what most Jewish communities have: a Hebrew Free Loan Association. For needs, whether it's scholarship, whether it's to help pay rent, whether it's to establish a business, whatever, get started, things like that. It's an excellent agency and program in most communities. But that's the way that's understood. The taking the neighbor or your worker's garment, in pledge, whatever. Again, it's a pledge. Later on, it's when we encounter it in Deuteronomy, it's the garment, as part of the the salary or the compensation, one way or another, that it must be returned before the evening, if that's the only clothing that the person has to sleep in. So it gets expanded later on.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yes, Suzanne.
This is more of this is the question. Does this tie into like the Jubilee and?
That'll come up shortly, but it does.
Oh, okay.
Ultimately, yes.
Yes. A couple of questions, though. if you give a loan, first I should ask the question, why is interest charged?
To
What
make
is-
it worth my while to lend you the money.
Excuse me? I'm
To
sorry.
make it worth my while to lend you the money.
Why? What is the reason behind that?
To encourage me, to entice me to lend you money.
Mhm.
No, you don't think
No.
so?
I don't think so. I think it's a more selfish reason.
Well, yeah, I'm greedy.
Okay. But what could, okay, Don had his hand up. Let Suzanne go first and then
Yeah,
Don.
go ahead, sure, yeah.
I think it's a way of keeping someone indebted or like in slavery, so to speak, to
Servitude.
person to keep paying and paying and maybe never get the loan paid off, just to keep them indebted to the
Yes, it can. That's why
lender.
that's
Yeah.
correct. It can be. Yes, Don.
Well, money is such weird stuff. I mean, it's a mental construct because and it served to make a way to make shoes equal to cars equal to something else in terms of relative value. So it has this utility and we use it without thinking, but it's really just based on human trust that it is what we say it is. And so when we have some, if we're going to loan it out, we're loaning out against what other things we could use it for. So for those that have, they have to think if I'm going to loan it to this person, I'm giving them my options to use it for something else. So I don't think it's easily, at least not in my mind. That's not an easy question you're asking, Marty.
It's not an easy one. You know, there are different types of loans. Most are collateral. Okay, the biggest one, the most
that's the
common one is
pledge.
the loan you take out for your house. Your
That's the
house
pledge.
is on loan is your collateral.
That's
to
the
the bank.
pledge.
That's
But
right.
if,
It's a
but if,
pledge.
but if someone is poor, they don't have
That's
much.
the point.
They don't have much to give you as collateral.
That's right. And so you have to say, but why does the bank loan the money at an interest? What is the bank's way of thinking at it? It's a business. It's a business transaction. They're not giving you the money out of their heart. What would they have been able to do with
It's
the
a
money
product.
that they loaned?
It's a product. The money is a product that they're selling.
Right.
And they set the price of what they're selling it for.
There you go. They set the price.
which
Do they?
is the interest
And
rate.
that if you want to do that, but it's for their own personal gain. So that it's the interest is really in place of a pledge. Think about it. You didn't leave a garment, but they're going to amortize that garment over 30 years.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's your interest rate. But they're in it to make a little profit
Or a lot.
or a lot of profit.
You're gonna have to excuse me. I have to go help take care of Lynn. I
Okay,
wish everybody Shabbat
Rabbi,
Shalom.
thank
We
you.
have a service next Saturday morning. Okay, there is a Shabbat service next Saturday morning.
Okay, and thank you, Rabbi, and give Lynn our best.
Thank you.
Likewise, thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. So that's from the standpoint of the person giving the money. But when you do so, there's a sense of responsibility, though, in two people when a contract is signed. All right, whether it's a verbal agreement or a written agreement, doesn't matter. It's the fact that both of you are entering as an area of responsibility, one to the other. And and we can look at it from the standpoint always from the person taking out the loan. But if it's a business, within reason, you can charge for it. However, Don.
No, it is, it's very complicated, at least in the American banking system.
Yes.
Banks are only required to have 10% of the money they're handing out. So when you go to take a loan on a house, bank doesn't have that money to give you because like people deposit money and they can loan it out 10 times before they have to
Exactly.
back it with cash. So as I said, to me, it's far just on the edge of my comprehension about how money really works.
But it really is very complicated, but there's a business side to any transaction. However, there are limitations being placed on that. Because the person doing the lending has a responsibility of taking into account, one, will whatever is loaned out be paid back? From the borrower's side, whatever I loan, will I be able to pay it back in a reasonable time? And what should happen if I can't? Well, in today's world, we have life insurance policies that are usually added into this thing.
Student loan, you don't have to worry about it.
Well, it depends. If it's an unsecured loan, then it's another level. And again, there are certain expectations from the standpoint of the borrower as well as the lender. So again, this raises the level of risk. And then if it's to a poor person, okay, now we're going to come into, don't even think about charging interest. Okay, because you're putting an added burden on the poor person. And suppose the poor person cannot pay the loan back. What happens then? Go ahead, Don.
Yeah, as I threw in there, the student loan forgiveness is a great example of the complexity of this, because here we've got hundreds of thousands of people with substantial borrowed money that they committed to paying back. And so let's put them in the poor category because a lot of them can't pay it back. And so now we've got a documented loan, promises, commitments, inability to fulfill those commitments and responsibilities. And then we have a partisan government saying, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it for you. So, as I said, I hardly know how to think about these things anymore.
This is a very important discussion because you're citing an example. We've been through this before because with the prior recession that we went through, we had a similar situation with another type of loan, mortgages. Okay. So there's a lot of responsibility on both sides of this equation. Okay. Yes, Ruth Ann.
I was just thinking, if you look at what the Torah says, I think God was trying to keep us from creating the system that we have now in place.
Agree.
Period. I mean, I think if we had listened to God, we would not have this situation. And I mean, because it is totally a societal thing that, people are in, in the predicament they are. I mean, Don, like you were talking about, people with their student loans and such. Part of the problem is the fact that, nowadays everybody wants to go to college and nobody, wants to do anything else. And we have a lot of jobs out there that when you and I were 18 years old would have only required a high school diploma, but now the employer is looking for a college education, but they're not willing to pay for, the salary for that college education. And so, like I said, I think God maybe was looking to the future or whatever, said, hey, if you do away with this system now, which unfortunately we didn't, we wouldn't be in the predicament we are today. I think God was saying that nobody should be making their income, their whatever, through banking, essentially. It should not even exist.
So
In the Middle Ages, Jews were the bankers to the kings and the queens and the rest of the
Right,
world.
because it was something that still needed to be done. I mean, whether God said it should be or not, it still continued.
and in the Magna Carta, and I defy anyone to pick up a copy of it or just probably Google it online. All of the lords had to pay back a loan that they had taken out. They were responsible for it, except if the creditor was a Jew. And that is in the Magna Carta. It has never been rescinded. Okay, so these are the political
Mhm.
issues. But for a banker, if the loans aren't paid back, the banker then becomes a pauper. The bank goes bust.
Mhm.
That happened in the Great Depression.
Mhm.
Okay. So there has to be some sense of responsibility, and we have to be very careful as we go through things. I don't know what the right answers are. I'm not a financier. I don't have a head for all that. But I do recognize from the standpoint of responsibility here, which is what we're talking about, it's a two-way street.
Mhm.
And that's the thing. But there's
When
an emphasis on the poor,
When-
Yes,
when,
Mike.
when one files for bankruptcy,
Hmm.
there are different chapters of it.
Yes.
You get you relieved of that responsibility on the surface, but you still owe the money back
Hmm.
to the people, your creditors. You still owe that money.
That's right.
See, and how that if the creditors they may be able to go if they keep track of you and all of a sudden you come into money. I think they could go after that money. I'm not
Yes.
positive,
Yes.
but I think they can.
Yep.
They probably, okay, Ricky,
Yeah, I
they
do know
knows
they
they
can.
can. So, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but I do know here it's very specific for the poor, how to look at it. Yes, Don.
Yeah, ironically, in the medieval times, the Jews were barred from entering craft guilds, trade unions, early trade unions, and they were really driven into
Yes,
financial
Mhm.
markets. And so,
exactly.
so then Then I have to carry a reputation for being usurious from that. So, you know, it's really unfortunate how that happened, but that is the reason for it.
That is very true. What you said is very true. I've read that also. Any other comments on this? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Ruth Ann. Next time we will start with verse 27.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Okay, and that'll be in 2 weeks.
2
on
weeks.
On the 24th.
Yes.
Yes, and
Any other
otherwise, there's
Yeah, go
nothing
ahead.
else going on. We have the service on next Saturday. If you missed Needson's talk last Wednesday, it was very, very interesting. It is out on YouTube. It is not on our BSTC website yet, because that's Les's job. I don't do that. I just do other stuff. And so it will be there eventually, but they've closed on their house in Minnesota. They're on their way back to
Oh, good.
Arizona. And so as soon as he gets back, I'm sure he'll get all that stuff. But I would watch. It was very, very interesting.
Excellent.
That's it.
Okay, well, everyone have a very good and healthy week.
Isn't there a
Please.
sisterhood meeting this week?
What?
Isn't there a sisterhood meeting this week? Or is that next week?
Oh, yes, there is. I forgot about that. There's also a men's club this week.
Yeah.
I forgot about them too.
Okay. Have a good and safe and healthy week.
Yeah, I
And
wanted to ask.
in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Yeah, Ricky, I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
When is the next bagel breakfast?
There will be no bagel breakfast in October
Okay,
because we'll be doing the break fast. And I'll let you know now, January 1st is a Sunday, but the men's club have asked that we push the bagel breakfast 1 week later.
correct.
So don't plan on January 1st. It'll be January 8th.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, next bagel breakfast would be November.
Okay. No other questions or anything? I'm going to wish you all again another great 2 weeks. Take care.
Okay,
Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Marty.
Ruth Ann, don't log off.
okay.
I just want to check email.
Nope.
And not that I expect a reply, but just wanted to see if we got anything from Gloria in the last 2 hours.
Oh, I doubt it. She doesn't get up till 10 o'clock. She doesn't get on the computer.
Oh,
till-
wait a minute.
You did?
Yes. As chair, blah, 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 blah. I see the Seder's not, okay. It is back on now. Thanks for noticing. As we are not allowed to bring food into Quail Creek, everything is included. All requirements for Seder, including Seder plate and plate at each place setting to include all items that need to be passed. Epi suggestion. Dinner is chicken and starch and vegetable to be determined at a later date. Do you not have a price yet? I will show mine if you show me yours. Oh, God. I'm the head of the damn committee. You're just supposed to be the point person. Is that, she did
So
answer?
she's gonna have a Seder plate at each.
Yes, at each setting, including Seder plate and plate at each setting to include all items that need to be passed. Epi suggestions. Dinner is chicken and starch and vegetable to be determined at a later date. Do you not have a price yet? I will show mine if you show me yours. Oh my God. That's the president of a synagogue? Sounds like a kid in a school ground,
Yeah, sure does.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh. Well, we're gonna have to do something really funny. Okay, I'll send mine to a third party. You send yours to a third party. And then let that person Oh, God. Oh. How do I answer? Okay, we know now, everything is included. All requirements for the Seder, including the Seder plate and a plate at each setting. Dinner is chicken, starch, and vegetable. Okay. I could ask her, does that include the wine?
Mhm. You can ask her, include the wine, how much is?
I'm
Like you
sorry,
said,
what?
I don't think you can get a straight answer from her no matter what. Okay, so I would just send her back something and say, how am I supposed to put together a report without your information?
Yeah, okay. But I think I should mention, what about the wine? Oops, I forgot to hit reply. I'm typing
Tell-
away.
Yeah, tell her you want to be able to put together a comprehensive report and not just a one-sided report.
Right. I want
And
to put
you need her information to put together this.
together a comprehensive report. Whoops. Including wine, tax, and
Gratuities.
gratuities. I was looking for the better word. To be sure we are comparing apples to apples.
Yeah,
I want to put together a comprehensive report, including wine, tax, and gratuities, to be sure we are comparing apples to apples.
you can put something in there that you really don't care where we have it at. It's the best.
Right.
We are looking for the best
What's best
option for the temple.
Right. Really don't care where we have it, period. I'm just looking for the best option for BSTC. I could put in here dash, and we know that is not the Latka lady. And a smile.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this way she won't feel so defensive or like
Yeah.
we're picking on her that, trying to rule out Quail Creek. We've never tried to rule out Quail Creek. We were just looking for all our options.
Yeah.
The first option was Lucky Lady. I mean, we have 3 different options that were on the table.
We also thought of La Posada.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. But that got ruled out very quickly.
Yeah.
So,
And
like I said, we were looking at all the options we could think of.
Yeah.
And we were not the ones that were getting defensive about it. She was.
I know. Okay, I want to put together a comprehensive report. Okay, I should say for the study session, including wine, tax, and gratuities, to be sure we are comparing apples to apples. New paragraph. I really don't care where we have it. I'm just looking for the best option for BSTC, long dash, and we know that is not the Latka lady, smiley face. I'll send that back to her. Oh, oh God. Well, let's see, so this is what, September, October, November, December, January, 4 more months. She will probably resign because I did definitely hear her say that she will serve out her term, but after she had been muttering about not wanting to stay on. All right. I really don't care where. I'm just looking for the best option for BSTC, and we know that it's not the Latka Lady. And La Posada is definitely out. Should I even mention La Posada?
You know what? I don't really think it makes much difference whether you do or don't. I think she
I know.
is so tunnel visioned.
I
Just, you know, that she doesn't want to do more than fall out of her living.
I want to put something in here. That sounds great. You know, I want to put something positive. Maybe I just say, sounds good, period.
Mhm.
I want to, you know,
Or you could put something in this, Desert Diamond is similar, they, you know, will not let us bring in,
yeah, okay.
I don't,
Desert
it doesn't matter, whatever you say is gonna fall on deaf ears, I'm afraid.
is similar in that we can't bring in anything. She didn't mention matzah. Okay, including matzah, wine, oh, my keyboard, double letters, a lot of things, so I ended up with matzu, a zoo, including matzah, wine, tax, and gratuities, to be sure we're comparing apples to apples. All right, here's where it starts. Well, I want to say, it sounds good. Let's see, wait a minute. I don't know if I don't really want to say including anything about a Seder plate for each person. That's ridiculous.
Yes,
Desert Diamond is similar in that we can't bring in anything. Okay, I just want to put a word in here. I just want to put together a comprehensive report for the study session, including matzah, wine, tax, and gratuities, to be sure we are comparing apples to apples.
mhm.
I really don't care where we have it. I'm just looking for the best option for BSTC, and we know that is not the Latka Lady. Smiley face.
Yeah,
I wanted to try to start off with something positive and then end with the joke, but chicken, starch, and vegetable to be determined at a later date. Do you not have a price? Do you not have a price yet?
I
Yeah.
wouldn't put that, I wouldn't put
I'm
that
not
in.
putting it- No. But she didn't mention the matzah, the wine, the tax, the gratuities, or anything like that. What else did we get out of? Those were when you add tax and gratuities, that's adding 30%.
Yeah,
If she comes back and says, well, the dinner is $30 a head, I'll say, yeah. But now how much is the wine? And how much is those tax and gratuities?
right.
And do we have to bring the matzah?
And as far as the wine, well, she had said they were buying it by the bottle, but, you know, again, how much is it and what's going on? And
Well, I don't care how much the bottle of wine is per se,
yes,
because the
It comes-
chicken plus the wine, plus the tax, plus the gratuities,
right, yeah,
that's the number we're shooting for. And I'm sure that they're held to the same liquor license laws as Desert Diamond. If anything, I would think Desert Diamond could be more lax because they're an Indian reservation rather than a regular commercial establishment like a restaurant. Because Quail Creek, that's a restaurant, isn't it?
yes,
So they're going to have the stricter, I would think, they would have stricter liquor laws. The casino, a reservation, can't they get away with
they get away with a lot of stuff, I
a lot
think.
of stuff? Yeah, because like I know they don't tax cigarettes because I always buy my cigarettes up at Tobacco Barn on the reservation.
Yeah,
So, well, then why are we paying the 9% tax on food service? Because it was 9.2% tax. Interesting.
Again, the reservation in and of itself could have their own sales tax for the upkeep of the
Yeah.
reservation. I mean, they are a government.
I was just thinking that the tobacco barn advertises no Tucson sales tax,
Yeah.
on the cigarettes. So, yeah, that's probably about right because Tucson's tax rate is, I don't know. All right. All right, I'm going to read it again. Desert Diamond is similar in that we can't bring in anything. I just want to put together a comprehensive report for the study session, including matzah, wine, tax, and gratuities to be sure we are comparing apples to apples. I really don't care where we have it. I'm just looking for the best option for BSTC, and we know that is not the Latka lady. Send.
Send.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours. God, oh, she's an adult, isn't she?
She's 80 some years old, I would think so, but who knows?
How old is she?
80 something. She's in her
Oh.
80s.
Okay, well, so am I. Okay. Yeah, my first message said, as chair, blah, 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 I will need to know what they are including and what they need from us.
Mm-hmm.
And she didn't address that at all.
Well, I mean, I can't, a Seder, I mean, does this Effie or Epi or whatever her name is, does she
Yeah.
realize how big a Seder plate is? I mean, yes, if you want to have a little bit of horseradish and a little bit of harosis at each plate, yes, I can understand that. You know, you have an itty bitty little bit of that. That's fine if you don't want to make that communal. But a whole Seder plate, I mean, 8 shank, I mean, that's a lot of trash that they're going through for 8 shank bones.
You know what? My friend who used to have a Seder for like 50 people, and I'd help her, she put a plate out, not between every 2, but maybe 3 or 4 people to a plate. You know, so that it wasn't a big one that had to go all over the place, but everybody was within reach so that it didn't really get passed. You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
I mean, you don't need a plate for each. And the thing is, if there's a place for each and we get a price, and let's just say, including everything I mentioned, it's going to be $60 a person, and ours is $50. And I would present that as saying, but for the $60, each person has their own place, their own Seder plate. You know, that's the difference. But I can't, no, I don't know Quail Creek. I've never eaten there. Oh, well, we'll see.
It's okay. I mean, I've had banquets at Quail Creek and I've had them at Desert Diamond, and you know, they're about the same. I mean,
The banquets, I mean, really.
it comes down to, you know, they're cooking for 100 people or 200 people or 500 people. They do their best to keep everything hot. Does everything stay hot? No, not necessarily. You know, I mean, I
So wait a
know,
minute, aren't we having matzo ball soup?
yes,
Ooh,
it's okay. That you don't have to put that in there. That could be in part of what we're comparing apples to apples to.
right.
But let her sit, because Ricky, I trust you that when you get her stuff, you will put up a spreadsheet almost. I know you,
Yes.
okay. Here's the spread, here's Desert Diamond and everything they're giving us and the cost, and here's, you know, Quail Creek and everything. You know, so the fact that
I just,
we have matzo ball soup and she hasn't said anything about matzo ball soup is irrelevant at this point, because you'll put it down. You're not going to hide
Yeah.
anything. I know that.
right. I just replied to myself, and don't forget the matzo ball soup.
Oh,
And I'll highlight that one to find it. Okay. maybe I should say, wait a minute, whoops, that's not what I want to do. Send the message to myself. What was it I was going to say? Maybe I should tell her that I plan on making a well, just
No,
the
you
fact that
already did that. You already said that.
Huh?
You already said that.
Yeah, I'm
Let's see
gonna
what she
compare-
comes back.
Yeah, the fact that I'm going to make a chart
If she
is,
knows you, she should know you're going to make a chart.
yeah, exactly. Well, how come I didn't get the one I sent myself? Oh, I know why, because it went right back into the don't forget matzo ball soup. Okay. All right. All righty, it's on its way.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
think it was important that you put in that you didn't care where it was at. So maybe she won't
Yeah,
feel so
no.
defensive.
And I tried to lighten it up with the Latka lady, you
Yeah.
know.
I don't think she'll get that, but maybe she will. But like I said, you know, the people who, well, not even all the people in Quail Creek, but a lot of the people that are in Quail Creek, yeah, they like the idea that they don't have to travel so far. They fall out of bed and they're there.
Right.
Okay. For people like us, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's probably easier to get there for us to Desert Diamond. But you know, and the
Yeah,
parking
I
is
think-
and the parking is better at Desert Diamond. But that's besides the point too. I mean, but it doesn't matter, you know.
Right.
Neither one are we falling out of bed and gonna be there. And like I said, and I can't see this Seder plate in each. Okay.
Yeah,
can't-
that's, yeah. Well, it was because, she said because they pass things around. So that's
but they-
cross
But
contamination.
but they pass out salad dressing too.
I know.
They put a carafe of salad dressing there or whatever, not a carafe, but you know what I mean,
Yeah, the gravy ladle full of salad dressing.
salad dressing. I mean, and that's basically the same thing that this is gonna be, you know? But like I said, if you want to put a little bit of the maror and the rosis, that yes. But a shank bone, oh, and put a little, and a piece of celery.
Right.
You know, but the rest of it doesn't have, you know, the shank bone, the hard boiled egg, it doesn't have to be per person.
I know.
Nobody's going to touch the shank bone. It's just going to go back into the trash.
Yep. Oh, well. Oh, well, the answer is on its way to her.
Let's see what she
Oh, I
says.
sent the thing out to, I just got a Shabbaton. Marilyn and Harvey will not be going.
Oh, we haven't decided. I haven't even thought about it. If, you know, if somebody else takes the place, oh, well, I'll be
Well,
honest, I have not even thought about it.
I have a list here somewhere. Okay. Sue and Marty are not sure because they're planning a trip. Marsha Weiner says yes, but she wants a roommate. You know, so, okay. Marilyn and her. Harvey, it's a B, bean. They, I don't know. All right. Okay.
That's all we can do. Wait and see.
Yeah, there's plenty of time. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll have 5 people and that's it. So open it up but I thought it was only fair to let the people that were signed up last year to have first crack at it.
Mhm.
Whoops. Oh, my dermatologist. Oh, this is going to be an automatic reminder of an
Oh.
appointment. Yeah.
Okay, I'll let you go. I'm gonna shut off.
Yeah. Yes, this is. Okay, well, hold on. Hold on just a second. Okay, I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.